Hi, Jessica here from Violette Threads. Erica and I are super excited to share with you guys our first video tutorial. We're going to talk about the Whitney trousers today. We're going to give you tips, pointers, and a little bit of extra help for those tricky areas. We're also going to have an ending segment on tailoring the Whitney's fit, so that when you put them on, they'll fit you to a T.
If you've ever had anxiety about sewing tailored trousers, we're here to help ease your mind, because you can do it.
Okay, so Erica's going to get us started first off with fabric selection, then cutting and labeling your pieces, and then finally how to prep the Whitney trouser fronts.
Okay, so let's get started. Okay, let's talk about fabrics. The Whitney trousers are a seasonless pant, so we want to walk you through some of our favorite fabrics for each season. First, let's go over some of our favorite fall and winter fabrics. First, we have a nice wool herringbone fabric. This is a wool tweed. This is a polyester blend suiting fabric. And finally, a corduroy. So here's a tip if you've never sewn the Whitneys before, or if you're a beginning sewist. You might want to stick with a fabric that is a heavier weight, like this corduroy fabric. You might want to shy away from these polyester blends. It's more of a slippery fabric, will have the tendency to crawl, and is just generally harder to work with. Now we're going to show you some of our favorite fabrics if you're sewing a pair of Whitneys for spring or summer. You can use quilting cotton, lightweight linen, denim chambray. This denim has a small amount of stretch in it, which can be nice. And today we're using a medium weight coral linen. So like I said, we're going to start our project and we're going to use the medium weight coral linen. Now I've already cut out most of the pattern pieces, but I want to talk to you about mirroring. So we're going to use this scrap of fabric, and we're going to talk about how important it is that your pattern pieces are mirrored when you cut them. So here's how you do it. Be sure the fabric is folded with the right sides touching, and the wrong side will be facing you. This will allow for the pieces to be cut mirroring each other. Now, as you can tell, with my fabric, it's virtually impossible to tell what's the front side and what's the back side. It's that way with most all apparel fabrics. So you need to be careful that after you've cut and unpinned the pattern pieces, you don't mix up the sides. So one way you can do this is after you've cut, just take an apparel marker. These will rinse off with a wash, and mark on the wrong side of the fabric. I like to just write a small B. That way I remember that it's the back. The last thing before we start the construction is we're going to prep the trouser front pieces. Each trouser leg is comprised of 5 pieces, 3 main leg pieces, and 2 pleat insets. Now what we want to do is finish the inside edges on all of these pieces. So on the main leg, we're going to finish with a zigzag stitch or a serger all of the inside edges. So that'll be all of these edges. We're going to leave the outer edges on each of the outer panels raw. Those will be finished in another step. On the pleat inset, you're going to finish each of the side edges. This can be done with either your regular machine using a zigzag stitch, or you can use your serger. Okay, and now I'm going to hand you back over to Jessica, and she's going to start on the construction of the front of the pants, and she's also going to show you how to inset the pleats.
Okay, so I've transferred the pattern markings from the pattern piece to the fabric like so. And now we're prepped to sew. I'm going to sew each of these 3 main trouser-like pieces together, starting from the top raw edge and finishing at the pattern marking. When I finish, I'm going to make sure to backstitch. So let's get started. So we're going to start pinning at the pattern marking, and we'll pin at the top, and then we'll sew it together. So we're going to sew these with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is really important to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So line it up and then get ready to sew. So now we look at our last 2 markings, line them up, and then we're going to pin. One at the top, and one right at the marking. And now we'll sew, again with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now on to the trickiest part, the pleats. Okay, so now we're going to pin the pleat insert to the trouser. Make sure that the right side of the pleat insert is touching the right side of the trouser when you line them up. You'll begin by pinning the insert 1/4 inch higher than the pattern marking. Then we'll pin all the way down the trouser. When we sew the two together, remember that we're only going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance. So again, remember that the top needs to be 1/4 inch above your pattern marking, and we'll start pinning all the way down. So now we're going to flatten the pleat down so that the raw diagonal edges line up. Just like this. Okay, we're going to pin these edges right here down, and we're going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'll pin these sides down and show you where you're going to sew. So you'll sew down here and down there, just like that. Once you've sewn this stitch, you're going to finish the seam with a zigzag stitch or a serger. Today we're going to use the zigzag feature on our machine. So here we go. And now you finished your pleat. So we're on to the last 3 pleats that will finish both of the trouser front legs.
Okay, now you have all your pleat insets sewn in, so I'm going to show you the easiest way to iron them in so they're crisp and perfect. So we're going to start on the right side of the fabric, and we're going to iron in the 2 main creases. So start with the one furthest on the outside, and try to line up the 2 pieces of fabric that you just sewed together and iron them on high heat all the way as close to the top of the pleat as you can get, all the way to the bottom hem of the pants. Now you're going to repeat the same thing for the opposite side of the pleat you just sewed in. Starting again at the top and ironing all the way to the bottom hem of the pants on that side. All right, now that those creases have been ironed in, you want to flip your pants to the opposite side. Now we're working on the wrong side of the fabric. And what you're going to do is press the two creases together so that the pleat itself bubbles up in the back. From the top of the pleat all the way to the bottom hem again. Then take the pleat and flatten it back out. Starting up at the top, flatten it out, and run a hot iron over the pleat. See, this one is pretty straight, so I'm just going to go over it on the top side with some good steam. And that's it, your pleat's sewn in. You're just going to repeat that with the other one and the other trouser front. And you'll have perfect pleats. Finally, we want to give you some tips on tailoring the pants so that they fit you perfectly. Now Jessica has on the pants we just made. We made them in a size 6, and as you can see, they're already very flattering on her. They're a really good fit. But there's a couple of small tweaks you could make that'll just make them fit perfect. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you how to do it. You want to put the pants on inside out. Notice that we have not put the zipper in the left side seam yet. I went ahead and pinned it closed because that'll give us a better idea of how they're going to fit once the zipper's in. So after you have them pinned on, then you want to check the side seams to see if there's any areas that should be taken in. On Jessica, it fits perfect through the waist and also through the upper part of her thigh. But when you get down towards the bottom, there's a little bit of extra fabric. So all we're going to do is take some pins, and we're going to take in just about 1/8 an inch. So we're going to pin 1/8 an inch. You're going to repeat this on the opposite side, and then once you take them off, you're simply going to follow your original stitch line, but take in the extra 1/8 an inch down the side of the pant leg. Okay, so now we have the finished product. We've done our alterations, the zipper's in, and now Jessica looks amazing in her perfectly fitted pants. She could not go to the mall and find a pair of pants that fit her this perfect. Jessica, do you mind spinning around and showing them all angles? We hope that you love them, and we really hope that these tips helped you along the way when you make your Whitney trousers. And stay tuned because we're going to be back with lots more fun videos for you.